Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating corporate transitions in modern tech history. We are talking about Meta's massive, high-stakes pivot into the world of artificial intelligence. Right now, Meta is experiencing this crazy duality. On one hand, their core advertising revenues are absolutely booming. But on the other hand, they're taking that incredible cash flow and using it to fund an unprecedented and, frankly, pretty risky gamble on AI infrastructure. We're going to unpack exactly how this trillion-dollar pivot is playing out and what it means for anyone who uses their apps, runs ads, or invests in tech. Let's get into it.
To really grasp the sheer scale of this pivot, we first have to look at the engine that's funding the whole operation. $240 billion. That is Wark Media's staggering ad revenue forecast for Meta in 2026. It represents an anticipated 22.3% growth this year alone. So if you've heard narratives lately about the decline of legacy social media, well, this number proves that Meta's core business is actually stronger, more dominant, and way more lucrative than it's ever been.
Here's exactly how we'll break this down today. 1. The core profit engine. 2. The Andromeda pivot. 3. The cost of AI. 4. Regulatory headwinds. And 5. The high-stakes gamble.
Okay, let's jump right into Section 1. Core profit engine, the ad machine.
So to understand where Meta's going, we need a baseline of where they are right now. Looking directly at the Savas Financial Q3 2025 report, Meta hit an astounding $51.24 billion in quarterly revenue. That is a massive 26% year-over-year jump. This growth was largely supported by a 10% increase in average ad prices and a 14% rise in ad impressions. It really establishes the absolute powerhouse that is Meta's family of apps, which pulled in an operating income of almost $25 billion all by itself. Honestly, if you're a business running ads online right now, you are for sure feeling those higher prices.
Now, you might be wondering, where exactly is all this money coming from? Well, Wark forecasts that in 2026, Facebook is going to account for 60% of Meta's ad revenue, while Instagram will bring in the remaining 40%. What's driving this consistency? It's their unified AI architecture. By rolling out these automated tools, Meta has optimized their monetization efficiency without ruining the user experience. This approach is maintaining double-digit growth across both platforms, pushing their total family daily active people to a staggering 3.54 billion users globally. Just think about that. That is nearly half the planet logging in every single day.
Which brings us to Section 2, the Andromeda pivot, rewiring the engine.
Here is the huge twist. Despite all of this incredible financial success, Meta didn't just sit back and relax. Instead, they completely threw out their old, highly successful ad targeting system. To understand this pivot, you have to understand what they replaced it with, a brand new system called Andromeda. In the past, advertisers relied heavily on manual targeting. You told Facebook exactly who you wanted your ads to reach based on specific categories. But Andromeda? It fundamentally rips that control away from manual advertiser logic. It relies on a deep learning, AI-first matching system that predicts user behavior directly based on the ad creatives themselves. Meta no longer cares about who you think your customer is. They care about who the AI knows will actually respond.
Let's de-jargonize this a bit for the marketers tuning in. How does Andromeda actually work under the hood? Instead of putting users into neat little category boxes, the deep learning algorithm predicts real-time behavior. It matches the creative elements of your ad, like the headlines, the visuals, the messaging, directly to a user's intent and their specific position in the buying journey. Basically, the AI reads your creative to determine exactly which ad to show to which specific person at precisely the right moment. Your creative is now the absolute driver of performance. It's wildly efficient, but it also means you're handing the keys completely over to the algorithm.
All right, moving into Section 3, the cost of superintelligence.
Now, all of that automated brilliance sounds amazing, right? But it absolutely does not come cheap. Contrast those record revenues we just talked about with these surging expenses. Meta's Q3 2025 total expenses reached $30.71 billion, which is up 32% year over year. But the real shocker is their capital expenditures, which climbed to $19.37 billion. That is a massive 134% year-over-year increase. It reflects an incredibly aggressive data center and AI infrastructure build-out. They're funding Meta Superintelligence labs, hiring top-tier technical talent, and pushing total 2025 CapEx estimates to between $70 and $72 billion. Guys, that's enough money to run a small country, and they are spending it entirely on servers and chips. Now, here's a massive curveball in their financials that's super easy to misunderstand if you aren't paying close attention. In Q3 2025, Meta's reported net income dropped a terrifying 83%, tumbling down to $2.71 billion. It looks awful at first glance, but this drop wasn't because their business failed. It was actually triggered by a $15.93 billion one-time, non-cash U.S. corporate alternative minimum tax charge. If you actually exclude that single massive tax hit, their adjusted net income would have been a whopping $18.64 billion. So the core engine is definitely still humming.
Let's move on to Section 4, Regulatory Headwinds, Reality Labs, Privacy, and the FTC.
As strong as their adjusted core profits are, no giant corporate pivot happens without some serious friction. First, let's look inside the house at their mixed reality division. While Reality Labs revenue actually grew an impressive 74% year-over-year to $470 million, which shows some solid early adoption of new hardware, the division is still bleeding cash. Reality Labs posted multi-billion-dollar losses, persisting at $4.43 billion for the quarter alone. There's still a very limited short-term payoff here, and those persistent losses risk diluting overall shareholder value when you stack them on top of those rising AI infrastructure costs. Beyond the internal costs, they're also facing intense external backlash regarding their new AI tools. Take July 2026, for example. Meta launched a feature called Muse Image, which allowed users to generate images using public Instagram accounts. Well, the privacy backlash was immediate, and it was severe. They drew heavy criticism from everyday users and even a Hollywood union over how public content was being scraped and referenced. It got so bad that Meta had to abruptly pull the plug, releasing a statement saying, "We've heard the feedback that this feature missed the mark, so it's no longer available." It perfectly highlights the incredibly tightrope they have to walk with consumer data privacy.
And looming over all of this is the Federal Trade Commission. We have to look objectively at the ongoing FTC antitrust case against Facebook. The core government allegation is that Meta utilized an illegal buy or bury approach to defend a social media monopoly. A key piece of evidence the FTC relies on is a 2008 internal memo from Mark Zuckerberg literally stating it is better to buy than compete. Now, Meta defends its past acquisitions, like buying Instagram in 2012, saying they created essential synergies for users. But the FTC is pushing forward with a trial that could potentially result in a devastating divestiture order, which would break the company up entirely.
Finally, Section 5, the high-stakes gamble. So we've seen the incredible revenue, this massive AI targeting shift, the staggering costs, and the looming regulatory threats. Let's bring this all together. This flywheel perfectly summarizes Meta's core dynamic right now. Their record-breaking AI-optimized ad business is the engine funding a wildly aggressive AI innovation program. It creates this loop, right? Better AI makes better ads, which brings in more money, which buys more AI infrastructure. However, allocating $70 to $72 billion toward infrastructure severely restricts their cash flexibility. If the monetization of these new AI products starts to lag behind expectations, prolonged high spending could seriously compress their free cash flow. Which leaves us with the trillion-dollar question. Will Meta's aggressive Andromeda-led AI investments yield the scalable efficiency and renewed profitability they're aiming for? Or will the crushing weight of data center costs, combined with intense privacy backlash and FTC antitrust hurdles, ultimately derail their momentum? It is a high-stakes gamble unlike anything else in tech right now, and the outcome is going to define the next decade of the digital economy. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time as we continue to break down the biggest shifts in technology and business.